All right, everybody, how you doing? Let's get into it. So we're looking at HIMS and HERS Health here, ticker symbol HIMS, listed here on the New York Stock Exchange. Stock right now 19.59, down about 2 points, back down about 9%. Was sub $19 here earlier, and basically we had a report come out from HunterBrook, which unfortunately I've actually never heard of this company, but maybe that's on me, whatever. But long story short, I think that, in my opinion, they missed the run, so now they put out a short report, but let's not go down the rabbit hole. Let's just work with what we have. So 1960 right now, right? Down 9%. Market cap right now, 4.2 billion. So let's pull up exactly what they said. HunterBrook issued a short report on the stock. What happened? Okay. HunterBrook released a bearish report on Thursday, alleging HIMS and HERS sells knockoff GLP-1 weight loss drugs and relies on a single supplier with previously unreported ties to fraud and bankruptcy. Interesting. Reached out to HIMS and HERS for comment, received a response from a spokesperson, company's commitment to customer safety, delivering safe access to injections. Okay. HunterBrook alleges that HIMS sells injections that are not FDA approved like other big pharma options out there, such as Novo Nordisk's Ozempic. Interesting. First of all, I want to say this. As an American, I could freaking care less about the FDA. I'll go on record saying it, and I will fight you tooth and nail in the comments section if you have anything else to say, not to be kind of a schmuck about it. But we have scientific reports already proving that a lot of preservatives, a lot of dyes that we put in our beverages, in our foods, are potentially cancer causing, what could cause Alzheimer's, brain swelling, arterial infections or whatever. But that's all okay. But again, the fact that something like this weight loss injection is not FDA approved, all of a sudden it raises a red flag, apparently, by HunterBrook. And also, it's not comparable to other big pharma options like Ozempic. Let me ask you this. What is currently the most popular trending weight loss drug on the market right now? Oh, it's Ozempic. Okay. So now that HIMS and HER Health comes out of left field and offers you another option, all of a sudden the fact that it's not FDA approved, it's a big red flag. All of a sudden now that it's potentially going to compete with Ozempic, a product from a quote-unquote big pharma company, now all of a sudden it's a red flag, right? I don't need to go down the rabbit hole. I'm just pointing out a couple of things to you here. HunterBrook said the company is able to sell the products through a loophole, which is basically what America is, right? A business and a tax loophole, for the most part, that allows facilities to sell their own versions of patented drugs during shortages. Okay, so they're allowed to do it? I don't understand. So technically they're allowed to do it through a loophole, but you're raising red flags about the FDA and the fact that it's now going to compete with Ozempic. Okay, fair enough. Okay. So I have to assume that HunterBrook is short on HIMS and long on Novo Nordisk. That's what I assume immediately, in my opinion. HunterBrook also alleges HIMS has partnered with BPI Labs, which it says has a history of FDA scrutiny over potential fraud at the executive level. Interesting. Yet they're still in business. Okay. HunterBrook noted that one of its media reporters qualified as being eligible for GLP-1 drugs after completing a 4-minute survey with HIMS. Interesting. Well, they probably have that survey there for a reason, right? Just like there's also like mental health surveys now on all these companies' websites, right? And if you answer like, oh, I'm depressed, maybe I thought about hurting myself or other people, guess what? You instantaneously qualify for some sort of mental health drug, right? So within a couple of minutes, you can qualify for almost anything. But the fact that this guy, girl, whoever, this random reporter, my apologies, this random reporter completed a 4-minute survey and apparently got approved and was eligible for this drug, apparently that's a red flag. Hey, listen, I just want to point out the hypocrisy here. You guys remember when they shut down like the entire freaking country? But if you went online, took 2 minutes, and said that you need money, or you have a job, or had a job, or you were looking for a job, and now the entire country is locked down, that they'll just send you $10, $12, $15,000. You guys remember that, right? I mean, that only took a few minutes as well. So I'm just basically making a point here to point out the hypocrisy. And also, every week, you were able to go online in most states. Well, some states, I'll say, whatever. But you understand my point. You were able to go online basically every week and kind of renew that unemployment and say like, oh yeah, you know, I was looking for a job. I still can't find a job. I need more money. And they would continue to pay out. So that's why it makes me laugh that everything has become streamlined now so that you can get a result or get approval or get eligibility within a few minutes. But the fact that this reporter became eligible for this drug within 4 minutes, for some reason that had to be mentioned. Again, just pointing out the hypocrisy, but moving on. The report suggests that HIMS could face legal struggles if its, quote, knockoffs prove to be unsafe or ineffective. Unsafe or ineffective. What does that connect to in my mind? Oh, yes. The whole time we were locked down and doctors were saying you had to get this, otherwise you couldn't go to the supermarket or you would lose your job or this or that. You couldn't see your family. You guys remember that, right? Well, we're potentially finding out now years later that that is potentially proving to be unsafe or ineffective. But that's okay. Again, just pointing out the hypocrisy. HunterBrook claims a FDA legal expert told its media arm that HIMS may have opened itself up to liability with its compounding business. Ooh. HunterBrook operates under two different arms, of course, media and capital. Former operates media outlet. The latter arm is a hedge fund betting on or against some of the stocks on which it reports. HunterBrook has announced that it has a short position in HIMS and Her Health stock. Yeah. We kind of could have connected the dots there. Now remember, when this was initially announced, no one had an issue. Probably, in my opinion, over the last 30 days, after they're seeing the popularity of it, and again, the fact that it could potentially rival Ozempic, all of a sudden, HunterBrook has an issue. Okay. Fair enough. Interestingly enough, as this report comes out, we have Jefferies raising their price target from 14 to 23. From 14 to 23. Right? Sharply, down again sharply as scrutiny over Ozempic knockoff business grows. Again, what is the most popular trending weight loss drug on the market right now? Ozempic. Who just came out with something that can compete with it? HIMS and Hers. Within 30 days, all of a sudden, we have a short report talking about potential liabilities and everyone's worried about FDA approval. I find it laughable. On Wednesday, Heard on the Street argued that HIMS' 150% stock market gain this year seemed excessive, given that the company's strategy to sell compounded forms of new weight loss drugs could eventually run afoul of FDA limitations. Isn't it interesting that when something like Palantir, which in my opinion, hands down, no matter what anyone says, is overvalued in the numbers, right? Because the company did like $2.25 billion last year. They got a market cap of like $30-40 billion, right? So if every stock reacted the same way that we've looked at in the past that had some decent fundamentals, you should essentially buy anything that I personally said that I liked in the numbers. Because if Palantir could trade at that multiple, then all of those other stocks we looked at could potentially retire you inside of the next 3 to 5 years if they react the same way. But also, Palantir reported net income positivity. The stock went from $7.70 and ran up to $24 a share. Notice that wasn't excessive. NVIDIA Two stock splits ago, in my opinion, was already overvalued in the numbers, but the stock continues to climb, gets up to 4 digits, splits again, continues to climb, gets up to 4 digits, splits again. Everyone and their mother and their brother is holding and buying Nvidia stock. Every hedge fund takes a position on Nvidia. It's now basically the most heavily weighted stock in the market. The entire world keeps an eye on Nvidia earnings because if they actually happen to miss or report some rough guidance or rough seas moving forward, then the entire market is going to go into a massive sell-off frenzy. But don't worry, because that run, that wasn't excessive. But again, HIMS and HERS stock up 150% this year seems excessive. I just want you to note the hypocrisy of this. And also, 2 quarters ago when the company reported earnings and beat, and we looked at the fundamentals and they were growing nicely, the stock was at 13. I said, in my opinion, longer term, 2025 should be no problem. And on the news of the weight loss drug, the stock hit 25 basically within 6 months of us looking at the stock. So it was a winner. It seems like, in my opinion, the company's doing a lot of the right things. They're up 150%, in my opinion, justified, because back at 12.13, they were undervalued, in my opinion. Then they start to climb to real value, and all of a sudden, this, quote, seems excessive. Moving on. On Thursday, a short seller report by HunterBrook Media, again, honestly, never heard of him, leveled several accusations at the company, including that it is giving weight loss prescriptions to patients without the supervision of a doctor. Oh no. HIMS shares were down 12%. On Thursday morning, HIMS spokeswoman referred her to a post which the company said is committed to going above and beyond when it comes to safety. HunterBrook report argued HIMS could suffer legal liability if GLP-1 knockoffs prove unsafe, ineffective, or violate a big pharma patent. Do you guys recall something that happened like 4 years ago when there was a massive lockdown and there was a big surge in the big pharma industry and a lot of people were potentially forced to take something? Do you recall this? Because now, 3-4 years later, guess what? We are having reports and studies coming out potentially proving that that was unsafe, ineffective. Unsafe or ineffective. Right? We're hearing that now. But remember, some people weren't able to go to the supermarket. Some people weren't able to visit their friends and family. You weren't able to go to church. Some people lost their jobs. Now, years later, we're potentially finding out that that was unsafe and ineffective. But that's okay. But the fact that HIMS and HERS now developed this potential weight loss drug that could compete with Ozempic, now it's potentially an issue. Or it could also violate a big pharma patent, right? I'm telling you, in my opinion, that is what I think is happening here. I think that it has the potential to rival Ozempic, so they are literally looking for any way to shut it down. Because if there's one thing I learned, it's that you better be careful if you go up against Big Pharma. That's the one thing I've learned so far here over the last several years. The report also said that HIMS supplier of GLP-1 knockoffs, BPI, has a checkered past. BPI is a wholly owned subsidiary of Florida-based Belcher Pharmaceuticals. We know how the media feels about Florida, but well, I'll move on, not going down a rabbit hole. In 2020, the report pointed out 2 Belcher executives were convicted in a massive medical fraud scheme that ranged from paying kickbacks to physicians, which we know happens basically all the time, to repackaging over-the-counter medicines and vitamins as prescription-only drugs to boost pricing. HunterBrook cited a response from BPI which noted that neither BPI nor Belcher have any history of criminal convictions and that one of the convicted individuals has not been associated as an employee, owner, or officer for over 5 years. But yet, for some reason, it had to be mentioned here. Some HIMS executives seem to be at least partly cashing out after the stock's massive run, which in my opinion they deserve, right? I mean, the stock is up 150% for the year. Fundamentals are growing nicely. Business, marketing and advertising is working out well. And of course, they're bringing new products to the market, which is increasing their attention, their revenue, their future business growth. So in my eyes, they're doing the right thing by shareholders. So when a company does that, yes, in my opinion, the CEO, the other officers and board members have a right to sell some shares if they want to and pay themselves a couple of $1 million. Notice when everyone pumps up these meme dying stocks like GameStop or AMC, the stock gets pumped up, they immediately issue more shares, basically to pay themselves millions of dollars. They don't reinvest it into the business. They don't try to restructure the business to actually turn it around for loyal shareholders. And they just continue down that path. And then people pump them again, and they issue more shares and they pay themselves again. Notice that's all okay. But the fact that this stock is up 150% this year is quote unquote excessive. And also the fact that these directors and board members are now selling shares to pay themselves, that is potentially a red flag. Okay? So if board members of a growing business pay themselves, it's a red flag. If board members of a dying meme business consistently issue more shares to screw over shareholders and pay themselves, that's okay. So I just want you to note the hypocrisy here. Realizing $26.4 million of net proceeds, which in my opinion they deserve. Now some other investors are fleeing too. No, I think you want them to flee. Because the average investor probably owns the stock at $7, $8, $10, $12 a share, and they're happy as a pig in shit right now. So I really don't know, quote, other investors that are fleeing at the moment. But this is why I just laugh and laugh, I mean, Nancy Pelosi could conduct insider trading and she can outperform Warren Buffett. But HIMS being up 150% year to date, that's excessive. Right? That's excessive. It is just laughable. In the numbers, in my opinion, I still like HIMS, regardless of really what happens, unless they completely get shut down and now have to, take this off the shelves. Then we're basically going back to the business we had before the announcement, which, if you recall, was growing very nicely. The EPS the company has been reporting is steady. The growth in revenue and net margin has been growing nicely over the last several years. Quarterly revenue is growing nicely. We're now net income positive for the last couple of quarters. This was all before this weight loss drug announcement. So that's why I'm saying, in my opinion, even if potentially they do happen to screw them over and shut this down, in my opinion, I still like HIMS. But hypothetically, if we draw out this trend line here from the bottom on May 3rd, 24, connecting to that bottom there on the 8th and the 13th coming up, we can see that right now the stock is hanging out right at the 20-day moving average. And hypothetically, if we do drop down to this level, we're looking at about 17.5 potentially. So in my opinion, I actually like it up here at sub 20. And of course, if it drops down to 17.5, I'm going to like it even more. But we have a $4.2 billion market cap. We're going to be looking at over $1 billion a year, probably in revenue, if we continue this trajectory. So based off last year, it's trading like a little less than 5 times annual revenue, which really isn't too excessive. But now if we look forward, right, if they're going to bring in $1 billion plus next year, now we're trading, like 3.5, 4 times annual revenue, which of course is even better. But we've looked at the numbers already on HIMS, and I already, again, went on record. It was back here after it popped after earnings. I said, in my opinion, this one looks good, and it's probably going to grow nicely over time. Stock runs up to 17, retests this fib at 11.20, and then goes to the moon here at 25 plus after the announcement. But again, got up to 17 on its own merits. That's why I'm saying it hit 17 and then pulled back, and then we had the news of the weight loss drug. So if we potentially eliminate this move on the weight loss drug, we should technically maybe come down to about 17 here, and then we should bounce and continue higher, in my opinion. Switch over here to stock charts real quick. I'll let you go. RSI now pulling back to mid-range here, so that's why we could potentially keep selling off, which is why I pointed out around that 17 level. MACD crossed to the downside. We are at the bottom Bollinger Band, and it was here at 18.99. Stock hit 18.80, now had a bounce of almost 1 full point. So we could potentially try to stay in this Bollinger Band range, but if they do break it down, again, we can see the 50-day moving average, 17.08. So that's why, in my opinion, if this thing does dip down again, 17.5, 17.10, in my opinion, I think I would be a buyer. But that's just me. RSI 46 on the daily. That's why it can continue to sell off. The RSI, as we see, was well above our 70 benchmark, and even after this big drop, it's still sitting here at about 63.5. Now, the mid-Bollinger Band on the weekly is about 15 1/3. In my opinion, that could be an overreaction, but also at the same time, the stock did go from like 9.10 up to 25. So if they really want to beat it up and try to take it out of the spotlight, we can potentially see 14, 13, 12. It is very possible. But again, in my opinion, I like it here at sub 20. If it drops down to 17, I'm going to like it even more. If they really beat it up to 15, 14, I'm going to like it even more. But the MACD was climbing high, as you see. Looks like a potential curling now taking place, so that's why we could potentially meet up and not necessarily cross to the downside, but we could meet like here and then bounce back up higher. So that's why I'm saying we may see like 17 incoming, especially if they want to cool off the RSI a little bit. But let's check the pivot points real quick and I'll let you go. Again, if it's something that swims against their stream or their narrative, it's an issue, it's a red flag, you got to be careful. What about the FDA? NVIDIA we can take to the moon and have the entire market climb for no reason just because we keep talking about AI. And that move isn't excessive. But the fact that this stock is up big year to date, it's excessive. Right? Nancy Pelosi could outperform Warren Buffett. That's not excessive. But the fact that this stock is up, it's excessive. The fact that it's competing and challenging Ozempic, in my opinion, is the number one reason as to why this report was issued. I am 99.9% convinced, in my opinion, that is why this report came out. Looking here on the weekly, we can see next support trend line, pivot point, 1565 again, so we could potentially drop to the 15s. But here on the daily, we can see we have our 50-day moving average a little above 17. We have a pivot point here at 1735. So in my opinion, those are the first levels to watch. And if it takes maybe a day or two to chunk down, that would be a big percentage drop, and that may actually bring our RSI down to about that 30 benchmark, indicating a potential bounce could be coming. So unfortunately, I mean, it really could go either way. But again, we liked it back here after they reported earnings, and the stock, little bounces around, but overall the stock was up nicely for us since our initial call. So in my opinion, stick with the winners, follow the revenue, and it seems like the revenue of this business is growing nicely. They brought weight loss injections to the market, and they're immediately being attacked. So in my opinion, I view that as a green flag, not a red flag. But, that's just me. But I'm pretty sure if you were involved with this one and made nice profits, or if you bought this a while ago and you're up nicely, chances are you may not be buying into this report. However, if you did happen to make a nice profit and you sold recently because the report came out, I mean, let us know how you feel about the situation in the comments section below. And of course, if you have any input or any opinions, leave it down in the comment section. And that's pretty much it. I'm going to end it there. So once again, this is Stocks by the Numbers. I want to thank you guys for stopping by. If you have any questions, comments, or concerns, drop it down in the comment section. I'm usually very quick to reply. Thumbs up algorithm helps me get more eyes on the channel. And of course, subscribe to the channel. That is our handshake agreement. That is how you help me help you. But more importantly, moving forward, like I always say, I understand that markets are rocky, they're volatile, they are very uncertain. So I want to wish all of you success. I hope everyone makes a couple of dollars. Thanks for your time. Have a good day.